When the facts bend reality, this is beyond plausible.
Sudden wealth creates immediate pressure from family, friends, and strangers seeking financial assistance. This pressure often leads winners to seek unconventional investments, promising higher returns and more control. Many lottery winners lack the financial literacy to evaluate complex investment schemes properly. Scammers frequently target sudden wealth recipients with offers that seem too good to be true. The desire for total financial control can override normal caution when evaluating investment opportunities. Public scrutiny intensifies when large sums of money are involved, making failures more visible. Financial losses from poor investments are compounded by legal fees and public embarrassment. This pattern of sudden wealth leading to financial downfall has been documented in multiple cases. The purchase of an entire abandoned town represents a unique category of real estate transaction, distinct from typical property deals. These properties, often called ghost towns, were typically established around specific economic activities like mining, logging, or railroad operations. When the primary industry collapsed or resources were depleted, the supporting community was often abandoned, leaving behind infrastructure and buildings. For a buyer, acquiring such a town is not merely about land and structures. It involves obtaining a tangible piece of regional history and narrative. This type of investment can serve multiple purposes, including creating a private retreat, preserving historical sites, or developing a unique commercial project. The market for these towns is niche and intermittent, with listings appearing rarely and attracting a specific type of high-net-worth individual or investor. Ownership entails complex responsibilities, such as managing decaying infrastructure, potential environmental liabilities, and navigating obscure property titles. The appeal lies in the scale and singularity of the asset, owning not just a house or plot, but an entire documented chapter of a place's past. The acquisition of a remote historic property represents a significant financial commitment beyond the initial purchase. Historic structures require specialized maintenance, from structural reinforcement to period-appropriate material sourcing. Remote locations add logistical challenges, increasing costs for utilities, security, and regular upkeep. Such properties often face regulatory hurdles, including historic preservation requirements and zoning restrictions. The business model for remote historic properties typically involves tourism, events, or specialized hospitality services. Initial restoration costs can exceed purchase prices by multiples, requiring substantial capital reserves. Seasonal factors affect both maintenance schedules and potential revenue streams from tourism. Professional assessments are crucial before acquisition, including structural engineering and environmental surveys. The winner's initial financial moves were telling. A substantial portion of the jackpot was immediately directed toward the property's purchase. This was followed by continuous, heavy capital investment into three critical areas: basic infrastructure, security systems, and restoration attempts. Such a pattern is common in major asset acquisitions, where the purchase price is often just the beginning of a long-term financial commitment. The remote location, while providing the desired privacy, introduced a major complicating factor: staggering logistical and financial challenges. Every delivery of construction materials, every service call for specialized contractors, incurred significantly higher costs due to travel distance and difficulty. This isolation creates a financial sinkhole, where routine maintenance and project management expenses can multiply compared to urban settings. The combination of a massive initial outlay and these compounded ongoing costs represents a classic high-risk capital allocation scenario. It is a pattern where asset value and personal ambition are perpetually weighed against the relentless drain of geographical and operational reality. The remote location created severe logistical challenges for the project. Transporting construction materials required specialized equipment and long-distance hauling. Finding skilled labor willing to work in isolated areas proved difficult and expensive. Basic infrastructure like reliable electricity and water access required costly custom solutions. Revenue generation plans faced practical implementation barriers. The tourism concept required substantial investment in amenities and marketing to attract visitors. Film location proposals competed with established studios offering better infrastructure. Event venue plans struggled with accessibility issues for potential attendees. Each revenue stream required overcoming the fundamental challenge of remote location logistics. Zoning regulations often required expensive permits and restricted land use, creating significant upfront costs for these remote developments. Liability insurance premiums skyrocketed for isolated properties, as insurers calculated higher risks from limited emergency access. The need for modern amenities like reliable power, water systems, and internet connectivity required massive infrastructure investments in these remote locations. Sheer remoteness meant transportation costs for materials and labor were exponentially higher than in accessible areas. These combined factors Regulatory hurdles, insurance burdens, infrastructure demands, and geographic isolation made the ventures financially unsustainable from the outset. Public records from the time document mounting financial pressures and operational challenges that overwhelmed the project leadership. Interviews conducted during that period describe a person increasingly overwhelmed by the compounding financial and logistical pressures. This pattern mirrors other failed remote developments where underestimating operational costs led to financial collapse. The project became a financial sinkhole, consuming not just wealth, but time and energy. Managing contractors required constant oversight and negotiation, draining resources. Dealing with bureaucracy involved navigating complex regulations and paperwork. The physical isolation of the project location contributed to the reported personal toll. This pattern is common in large-scale ventures, where oversight is mismanaged. The cumulative stress from financial drain, logistical challenges, and isolation often leads to burnout. The financial drain from the property became unsustainable, depleting the winner's assets through maintenance costs, taxes, and other obligations. This depletion followed a common pattern in high-value asset acquisitions, where ongoing costs are underestimated. Forced to relinquish control, the winner lost the town in a process similar to foreclosure or repossession. The reversal was stark. The entity reclaiming the property was the original seller, creating a circular financial outcome. This scenario mirrors certain distressed asset strategies, where sellers repurchase properties at significantly reduced values after financial strain. The complete asset depletion demonstrates how single large liabilities can overwhelm even substantial resources. Control transfer typically involves legal proceedings, where the original terms of sale or financing agreements are enforced. Such reversals highlight the risks in transactions where the seller maintains some form of ongoing interest or leverage. The investigation faced significant limitations from the start. Investigators lacked access to complete financial records and personal statements beyond what was publicly documented during the period of notoriety. This created gaps in understanding the full scope of the financial operations. A common misconception emerged that attributed the downfall to supernatural causes related to the town's location. The reality was far more mundane. It was simply a complex, high-cost asset that failed. It behaved like any bad investment, suffering from overvaluation and unsustainable costs. The scale was what made it notable. A grand failure of due diligence and financial planning. The pattern mirrors other asset collapses, where initial excitement obscures fundamental flaws. The common narrative paints lottery winners as reckless spenders, but this case reveals a more complex reality. Here, the financial drain stemmed from a seemingly noble and logical ambition, the restoration of a historical asset. This project became a vehicle for significant loss, due to a critical miscalculation common in such ventures. The costs of restoration and maintenance were severely underestimated, a frequent pitfall in heritage projects. Simultaneously, the potential returns from tourism or other revenue streams were overestimated. This combination created a perfect storm, locking vast sums into an illiquid asset with diminishing prospects. The story serves as an extreme case study in the critical importance of asset liquidity. It underscores that due diligence must go beyond surface appeal to model worst-case financial scenarios rigorously. A lottery jackpot provides immediate purchasing power in liquid cash form. However, winners often convert this liquidity into illiquid assets like real estate, businesses, or luxury items. These capital-intensive assets require ongoing maintenance costs, taxes, and operational expenses. The critical distinction is between having enough money to purchase something versus sustaining ownership long-term. This pattern mirrors financial planning principles, where asset allocation must consider both acquisition and maintenance phases. Without proper financial management, winners can find their wealth trapped in assets they cannot afford to keep. The decade timeframe illustrates how short-term purchasing decisions create long-term financial obligations. This phenomenon demonstrates why sudden wealth requires different financial strategies than gradual accumulation. The sudden acquisition of a historic town represents a classic case of asset misidentification. Properties with historical designation carry strict preservation mandates, often requiring specialized contractors and approved materials. Remote locations dramatically increase costs for utilities, security, and routine maintenance, creating a constant financial drain. An independent feasibility study would have quantified these ongoing obligations before purchase, separating apparent value from actual cost. Without a detailed, multi-year budget, the new owner faces unpredictable expenses that can quickly deplete even a large windfall. The critical missing component was a realistic exit strategy. As such niche, high liability assets have an extremely limited buyer pool. This pattern mirrors other asset traps, where the prestige of ownership blinds buyers to the structural financial realities. The result is not an investment, but a permanent, open-ended financial obligation masquerading as property. This principle is demonstrated repeatedly in financial history, where immense resources enabled catastrophic miscalculations. Wealth provides access to leverage, allowing individuals and institutions to place bets far exceeding their actual capital. This leverage amplifies both potential gains and losses, turning a simple error into a systemic failure. The 2008 financial crisis serves as a prime example, where complex instruments built on debt collapsed global markets. Similarly, corporate frauds often escalate because initial deception is funded and hidden by existing capital. The mechanism is clear. More capital allows for riskier ventures, delaying the inevitable confrontation with economic reality. This pattern contrasts with smaller operations, where mistakes are corrected or lead to failure more quickly. Ultimately, no amount of wealth suspends the laws of supply, demand, or sustainable valuation.
Curious? Subscribe and step through the next anomaly.